the bottom. So at the bottom of Daf Chav Aleph on Bet, Mishnah says, Asar Koche Kodashim Shnitma Bein B'Avatuma Bein B'Vladatuma Bein B'Fnim Bein B'Chutz Beit Shami Omrim Hakol Yisrael B'Fnim. Everything should be burned inside. So the usual place of burning kodshim is inside the Beit HaMikdash. I think on the next stuff I'll go into the Revavan, who will bring limudim as to why this is, like, why would you ever want to burn anything tummy inside the Mikdash? So when we get to Daf Chav Bet, we'll go inside and take a look there. So the opinion of Beit Shammai is everything gets burned inside except for Bein B'Avatuma and Bein B'Vladatuma Bein B'Chutz Beit Shammai Omrim Kol Yisrael B'Fnim Chutz Mishnitma B'Avatuma. So if it got tameh from an avatuma, the most severe form of tuma, something that is mitame other things, then you burn it outside according to Beit Shammai. Chutz mishine b'avatuma b'chutz. It was so if it was inside and it got tameh from an avatuma, well then in that case, then you would burn it inside. Beit Hillel omrim hakol yisraf b'chutz. Beit Hillel say no, everything should be burned outside. Chut mishnah bivlad hatuma bifnim. If it was already inside and it was nitma with a vlad hatuma, well, then you can burn it inside. Rabbi Eliezer omer shnita ba'av hatuma bein bifnim bein b'chutz yisraf b'chutz. So Rabbi Eliezer says in the Mishnah, if it got tameh with an avatuma, it doesn't matter where it was originally, take it outside and burn it. You can't burn it with the other kodshim in the Beit HaMikdash. Shnitma bivlad hatuma bein b'chutz bein bifnim yisraf bifnim. That's, and Rabbi Eliezer says, but by contrast, if it's tameh with a vlad hatuma, something that was nitma from an av hatuma, then you shouldn't burn it inside. Rabbi Akiva omer makom tumato sham sreifato. Rabbi Akiva says, don't touch it. Once it's tameh, if it's outside, burn it outside. If it's tameh inside, don't take it outside. That's a bit of a problem, he thinks. Just burn it inside. Whatever it is, no difference between whether it was nisba from an avatuma or from a vlad hatuma. Just kind of want to show here, if I can, I want to show the Rivavan. So Yisraf Bifim. So why do you want to burn things inside anyway? Like this, it's a little bit difficult to understand what's happening here unless you think that under some kind of ideal circumstances, you should be burning things inside the Beit HaMikdash. So Yisraf Bifnim. So Makom Shesorfin Shar Pesule Kodshe Kodashim. Okay, look, there was an Ola and something got Tameh, so you burn it inside. The time of Pesachem, in the second parak, Rabbi Shimon Omer b'mikdash ba'esh tisaref. So in ba'kodesh ba'esh tisaref, you burn the kodesh with fire inside. Linet al chatat shesrifata ba'kodesh. Okay, so a chatat gets burned in the kodesh, in the Beit HaMikdash. In li ela zo bilvad, maybe it's only the chatat. Sharp sule kod she kodashim, all like an ola, etc. The imurei kod shim kalim. The imurim are the parts of the animal that you can't eat, but you have to take them out of the animal and burn them on the mizbeach. So like, like the, for example, the chaylev fat of a korban gets taken outside. of the animal and then burned on the mizbeach, even if the animal is, let's say, a shlomim, where a large amount of the shlomim can be eaten by the owner of the korban. Some of the animal gets taken and burnt on the mizbeach. So those are the emurim. So Imri Kodshe Kalim, they're very similar to Kodshe Kodashim. So Minayin, Talmud Lomar, Kol Bakodesh Ba'esh Shisaref. Okay, so Kol, everything gets burned in fire, Bakodesh. V'amrim Perik Tvul Yom Tanurban Shalosh Beit Hadeshanin Hayu Echad Bazara Shesham Sorfin Psulei Kodshe Kodashim B'Mirei Kodshe Kalim. Okay, great. So under ideal circumstances, this is where you burn the stuff. Inside the mikdash, special din. Okay, so bar kapara, amar avatuma dvar Torah. So he says the concept of having avatuma, those are doraita. Does it mean all hatumas are doraita, or just most of them are? Okay, that's a different discussion. Vlad hatuma midivrehem. Most vlad hatumas are durabana. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Bein Zeh Dvar Torah. So Rabbi Yochanan seems to be saying that both an Avatuma and a Vladatuma is Dvar Torah. So, the Kasha Rabbi Yochanan al Devet Shammai. So we read in our Mishnah, hasn't Rabbi Yochanan heard of this Mishnah? Mishnah has Beit Shammai's opinion. Beit Shammai Omrim HaKol Yisraf Bifnim, Chutz Min Shenitma Be'av Hatuma B'chutz. If it was outside, and it was going to be Avatuma, well, then you have to burn it outside. So, ma bein avatuma b'chutz, ma bein vladatuma b'chutz, zev lo devar Torah? Exclamation point, question mark. Isn't this devar Torah? Like, what's the difference in these two cases, Rabbi Yochanan? All right, so that's one kasha from Beit Shammai. Let's ask another kasha from Beit Hillel. The filu al debate Hillel lo makshaya debate Hillel. Wouldn't you ask a question according to Beit Hillel also? Amar debate Hillel Amar hakol yisraf b'chutz chutz shenitma bevlad hatuma bifnim. If it was inside the Beit Mikdash and it was nitma with a vlad hatuma, then you can burn it inside. But wait a second, you just told me that vlad hatuma is dvar Torah, same as avatuma. Ma bein vlad hatuma bifnim, ma bein avatuma bifnim. Why is there this chelak if they're the same? They're both daraita. Zev zeh lo devar Torahu, according to your opinion, Rabbi Yochanan. So lo havu barabanan ela al devar kapara. So really, the rabbis didn't talk about the opinions. Rabbi Yochanan and bar kapara, they didn't give them equal screen time. They only talked about bar kapara. Implication being, these questions, Rabbi Yochanan, are too strong. We can't understand Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. We're going to drop it here. There was a Tiklin Chadatin earlier in the Masechet that noted that, Derech HaYerushalmi is not to discuss Shitot Dechuyot too long. Like, once we find problems with something in Yerushalmi, we don't dig into it more. Bavli will go in for pages and pages on opinions that it doesn't think are according to halacha. So here the Yerushalmi says, I have these kashas and Rabbi Yochanan, time to drop them. Tichlin Chadtin earlier in the Masechet noted, this is Derech Yerushalmi. All right, but let's now ask some kashas and bar kapara. The kasha de bar kapara, all debate Shammai. So kashas on bar from Beit Shammai. Debate Shammai omrim hakol yisref bifnim chut mishnah ba'avatuma b'chutz. Ma bein avatuma bein b'chutz bein bifnim zev zeh lo devar Torah. So you can ask a kind of parallel question on bar kapara. What's the difference, inside and outside, if they're both tameh with an avatuma? Who begin to Rabbi Akiva Amar Makom Tumato Sham Tehei Sreifato. So begin to Rabbi Akiva is saying the opinion of bar kapara being asked from within Beit Shammai, it's saying the Beit Shammai are kind of taking the positive value if we want to burn inside the Beit HaMikdash, but they're also taking as part of their shita what Rabbi Akiva says. So there's this counter pressure from both sides. So this is like real, like theoretical lomdus going on here. So begin to Rabbi Akiva Amar Makom Tumato Shamte Sreifato. So Beit Shammai, according to bar kapara, they also, it's not such a kasha because they worked into their opinion some of this, like, well, some of the logic that Rabbi Akiva expresses more fully. Okay, the filu al debate Hillel, lo makshay debate. Couldn't you ask a question from Beit Hillel? Debate Hillel mar hakol yisraf b'chutz, chut mishin b'vlad hatuma bifnim. So if that's the case, what's the difference between a vlad hatuma bifnim and a vlad hatuma b'chutz? Isn't it all durabanan? Ma bein vlad hatuma bein bifnim bein b'chutz. It should just be a durabanan tuma, and it should be able to fulfill the positive value of burning it inside b'kodesh. Why? What's holding you back? Zev v'zeh lo medivrehem, or isn't it ben kach mecha? So who begin der Rabbi Shimon? So his opinion has an aspect of Rabbi Shimon. Now we haven't seen Rabbi Shimon in this sugya yet. Amar machal mashko shel mitzora ein mevin l'shlosh machana. Okay, so you see the Gra doesn't say what it says here on this daf. Let's actually just take a short look at this. Hakir saying machal mashko shel mitzora ein mevin l'shlosh machana. V'haki pirushu. Begin de Amar Rabbi Shimon ochli nemashkin shel mitzora ein mevin l'shlosh machana. Okay, so Rabbi Shimon said this, but where did he say this? So Rabbi Shimon zeh lo matzati mekomo. The Vilna Gaon says, I haven't found this exact Rabbi Shimon anywhere. V'nir Rabbi Shimon l'tamei azil. The sof parak comment kalim in the Tosefta to Kalim in the first chapter. Rabbi Shimon Omer kashem she'in zavot v'nidot v'yoladot nichnasim lahar habayit kach mashkavam u'shavam kayotze bahem. So Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion you don't bring things into the Kodesh place if they became tameh from an av hatuma. So too we apply an aspect of Rabbi Shimon's opinion here to Beit Hillel's opinion, or at least their logic gets applied here. So it's not a kasha on Bar Kapara. Very, very interesting Gra. But also we see the power of the Gra goes in and just says, I need to edit the girsa to make this work. But also, what Rabbi Shimon does this? So if you don't find the Rabbi Shimon in the first parak of the Tosefta to Kalim, you have no idea what this Rabbi Shimon is. Like, isn't that like amazing? That just says Rabbi Shimon. You're like supposed to think, well, what Rabbi Shimon? I didn't see Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. I saw Rabbi Eliezer. It's like the Gra. It's just like the most amazing thing ever. Okay. Iva reha tamid nitnin mechetzi kevesh ulamata b'marav she b'marav. All right, so took the parts of the korban ola for tamid, and you put them on the ramp on the mizbeach on the lower half. And you put them lamarav lifnei Hashem in front of closer to the heichal. Shel musafin. Let's say there was musaf on Shabbat. Nitnin mechetzi kevesh ulamata b'mizrach. So you can imagine on the kevesh, it was like a ramp. So let's say on this side is the heichal, and this side is facing the entrance to the Azara. So on this side you have the tamid, on this side you have the musaf, and in the middle you have like the I'm almost imagining like in the airports you have like the conveyor belt things. In the middle, that's where the kohanim can move up and down. There's a little bit of a finesse here where why don't you just bring all the parts of the korban up in one go? There's a little bit of finesse where it's possible that there was this comes down to like a machloket, I think in Yoma. There's one opinion that it was one avoda to get the parts of the animal to the kevesh lower half. There's a second avoda, different kohanim took the parts of the animal up onto the mizbeach to get burnt. Okay. If you don't say that, then you have another reason for it. But there's a little bit of finesse here about like why is this even a thing at all? Shel Rashi Chodashim Nitnin al Karkov Hamizbeach. Ma'alan. So if the parts of the animals for the korbanot of Rosh Chodesh, those got put above them on the karkov of Mizbeach. We'll find the Gemara what that is, but it's on. Imagine the top of the Mizbeach is a square. It's on the sides of the square. Okay. Now, our last topic of Shekalim and of the night, very halach l'maisa. What is the status of Shekalim Bisman Hazeh? Like, what is this mitzvah? What happens if you try to do this mitzvah nowadays? What you said, these are my Shekalim. So, Hashkalim v'bikurim inan nohagin el bifnei habayit. The mitzvah of Shekalim, the mitzvah of bikurim, bringing the first fruit from your land in Eretz Yisrael to the Beit HaMikdash, that only exists when the Beit HaMikdash exists. Aval, maser dagan maser behema bechorot, taking truma and maserot, taking maser from your animals, and the kedusha of a bechor, no hagin bein bifnei habayit ubein shelo bifnei habayit. So, nekuda. Hamakti shekalim uvikurim. What if you said, this fruit is my bikurim, or you said this shekel is my shekel to the Beit HaMikdash that, Bisman Hazeh does not exist, but we hope in Hey Rabbi Yameinu will exist. So, Hare Zeh Kodesh. The Tanakama says, in such a case, your shekel is Kodesh and your bikurim are Kodesh as well. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Homer bikurim Kodesh, Einan Kodesh. Rabbi Shimon says, because there's no Beit HaMikdash, and there's a pasuk about how bikurim is supposed to be brought to the Beit HaMikdash, in the absence of that possibility, you can't even be makdish your fruit or produce as bikurim. Doesn't work. Implication being, Rabbi Shimon agrees that if you were to say this shekel is Kodesh, that would work, even in the absence of the Beit HaMikdash. Okay. So now the Gemara says, Ezehu karkov hamizbeach. What is the karkov mizbeach? So amma bein keren lekeren. It's the 1 amma distance. It's 1 amma in width, and it runs from corner horn to corner horn. That 4 corner horns on the mizbeach, and so it's the outer perimeter of the mizbeach. Makom hiluch raglei kohanim, and it was wide enough for kohanim to walk on the sides of the mizbeach along the karkov. So musvei Shabbat, musvei Rosh Chodesh, mikodem. Which goes first? Which should you do first? Rabbi Yirmiyah Savar, Meinmar Musvei Shabbat Musvei Rosh Chodesh, Musvei Rosh Chodesh Kodmin. Rabbi Yirmiyah says maybe Musvei Rosh Chodesh should go first. So Chayle de Rabbi Yirmiyah min Hada. So there's support for Rabbi Yirmiyah's opinion from this. Shiro shel Shabbat, the Shiro shel Rosh Chodesh. There's 2 different shiur shel yoms. So Shiro shel Rosh Chodesh kodem. You say the one for Rosh Chodesh first. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yosai Shniyahi. Rabbi Yossi says no. Or Rabbi Yosa. He says it's different. You can't bring a raya from the shiur shel yom to the order of the musafim. So Tamna Amar Rabbi Chia b'shem Rabbi Yochanan kidei lefarsamo l'hodio shehu Rosh Chodesh. There's the special. We do the shiur shel yom for Rosh Chodesh first because we want people to know that it's Rosh Chodesh. There is a Gersa note here from the Gra. Min ketzad hu oseh v'ad baram hacha lo garsinan kan rak lekaman kodem hafsakat shekalim v'kurim. All right, so ketzad hu oseh shochet musfei Shabbat vomer alehem shiro shel Rosh Chodesh baram hacha musfei Shabbat Rosh Chodesh musfei Shabbat kodmin al shem kol hatadir mechavero kodem et chavero. So kol hatadir, everything that's more common, as in Shabbat happens, let's say 4 times a month, Rosh Chodesh happens once a month, or twice a month. We have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. So Shabbat is more common, happens more often. So kol hatadir mechavero kodem et chavero. So the korban for Shabbat should come before the korban for Rosh Chodesh. So shekalim uvikurim hashkalim kidsho. So is it the case that shekalim can become kodesh? So Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. I'm going to keep track of these names here. So this is Shimon ben Yehuda. Mishum Rabbi Shimon. Bein elu vein elu lo kidshu. So he was of the opinion that neither shkalim nor bikurim could become kodesh b'zman hazeh. So Tani, let's quote this. Ger b'zman hazeh tzarich levi kino rivi'it kasef. So there is an opinion that maybe b'zman hazeh, a ger needs to set aside the money that they would use to buy a khan, a nest of birds, presumably one la'ola and one la'chatat, to be their korban in the Beit HaMikdash as part of their conversion process. Because when people convert, they have to bring in korban. That hasn't been possible for the last 2,000 years of Jewish history, but this is the procedure. So this opinion says that a ger has to take money and set it aside. Don't do this, by the way. So I'm Rabbi Shimon, so same Rabbi Shimon we had. Bitla Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai mipnei hatakala. So Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said you don't have to set aside money to buy your korban for if you're a ger because of takala. You'd have this money lying around. It's for the Beit HaMikdash. You could violate Ne'ilah with it. It'd be really bad. So mahu mipnei hatakala. What does it mean? Kadadatani ein makdishin v'lo marichin v'lo machrimin v'lo magbihin trumot, and then so trumot amasr b'zman hazeh we do. The Ger says wrong. That's what the Gra points out here. Lo magbihin, but we do trumot amasr b'zman hazeh. That this is fake news. The in hikdish oherich ohechrim. But what if you were makdish? What if you did erichin? Parshat erichin, end of the Bechukotai. What if you did the Charamin, which some of the Charamin they land to the Beit HaMikdash, some of them land to the Kohanim? Oh, higbia hakesut tisaref. So let's say you say this clothing is for the Beit HaMikdash, and you do it, with full gemirat dat that I'm really doing this for the Beit HaMikdash. You're not just doing it for expositional purposes. So the din is tisaref. It needs to get burnt. There's nothing we can do it. V'habehema te'aker. The animal gets uprooted. What does uprooted mean? Well, call PETA. When the Beit HaMikdash exists, or this is like animal cruelty. Ketzad, what do? Noel befaneha delet. You lock it in a room. V'hi meitah me'aleha. You don't give it food or water, and it dies by itself. You can't kill it because it's hektish. It's a sacred, but you have to basically do animal cruelty because there's nothing that can be done with the animal. It's just hektish. Has to be meta me'aleha. Okay, the hamaut, we took money and you were makdish it. You have to throw it in the Dead Sea. You could also throw it into a normal ocean if you grind it up and destroy it first. I always kind of wonder, what the Yam HaMelech is retreating as it has less and less water in it. So what happens if you find gold coins, the Yam HaMelech? You have to assume that this was hektish or isurei hana that people 2,000 years ago threw into Yam HaMelech? I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Isn't the theory that throwing into the water will corrode the metal?
Yeah, but gold doesn't corrode. So yeah, like if it was iron.
It doesn't corrode, but it's generally gold coins are not pure gold, and I believe that there would be an oxidation reduction reaction with any metal that was used to smelt with it. Yeah, I would assume there'd be at least some minimal corrosion.
Okay. Ava v'hikdish mean mad amar b'shimon bitla. So what if you were to be makdish? Mean mad amar b'shimon bitla. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai mipnei takala. So Rabbi Shimon said that Rabbi Yochanan was batel it because of takala, implying that if you were to do it, it would become a takala. But Rabbi Shimon previously said that it doesn't work at all. Hada amra avar v'hikdish kid show. That implies that if you were to be makdish it, it would become hektish. Rabbi Yuda unto Daira Baikumi Rabbi Yossi Hacha Atamar. I'm going on to Chaf Bet. So now you say Kidsho v'hacha atamar lo kidsho. So what could it be? So Amar lo taman lekach ein makdishin lechatchila lefisha mitzvah lahakriv mitruma chadasha. Veheach. So how can it havele yeshana? V'hacha ma. Okay, so if you were to give shekalim nowadays, even though there is no Beit HaMikdash, so you could still designate your money to that purpose. But let's say the Beit HaMikdash gets rebuilt, and then it's Nisan. Then we'll ask everyone for their new shkalim, and all the money that you've given now as shkalim is going to be tikkun atikin. It's going to be the old shkalim from the previous year. So you won't be able to put it towards its intended purpose of buying a share in the korbanot. So it'll become yeshana. V'hacha ma'it lecha l'meimar ha'yeshanahi. So legabe hekdeshot acherim v'kino shel ger eno tzarich chadasha. So normal kodshim. So like if you were to say that something is like kedusha beta kavayit, even though there is no Beit HaMikdash, it would work. V'kino shel ger eno tzarich chadasha. So that's why it can still be practiced. V'in hikdish kadosh. Ad shibana Beit HaMikdash, or burn it. Shema yibana habayit kibarishana. V'yitrim trumat halishka min hachadashot bizmana be'echad b'nisan. V'hacha mai ilcha. So what would be the case? So Rav Hamnun, Rav Ada, Bar Ava, B'Shem, Rav Halacha k'Rabbi Shimon. Halacha is like Rabbi Shimon, that if you were makdish your shkalim, that works. It goes to that purpose. It goes even though there are no korbanot nowadays for you to buy a chelakin. If you were to accidentally say that this money is for my shekel, that would be true, and it would actually have a status of hekdesh. Halacha Rabbi Shimon to bikurim lo kadshi. So Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah said bikurim. If you say these are my bikurim, doesn't work. The shkalim kadshi, but shkalim do become kodesh. V'chen kino shel ger kidsho. So a ger isn't supposed to, but if a ger did set aside money to buy their can, it would work. So, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, don't do that. Mipnei hatakala. Hadran alach perak kol harokin v'salkla Masechet Shekalim. Okay, so now we have reached the end of the Masechet. I think we should ask people want to say things.
We're not a very talkative group.
Okay. Well, I'll say some things. Definitely got I got a much deeper appreciation for the Vilna Gaon. Seeing him on every page take at times 4 lines at a time out of the Gemara and then reread it to make it fit with Tosefta, just everything else there is, and dealing with that. Also these great Perushim from his students. It's really incredible what the Beit Midrash of the Vilna Gaon pulled off on Masechet Shekalim in terms of making it a learnable book. I think it can be very difficult to get anywhere without that. At the end of the 6th parak in Shekalim, Rish Lakish said that the Torah was given Eish Levana Charuta Be'esh Chora, Muchlelet Eish, Chatzuva Be'esh, Natuna Me'esh. Okay, so Chatzuva Me'esh, so the Vilna Gaon or his student, Baruch Shlov, in the Tikkun Chad, he says, Chatzuva Be'esh, Melavushet B'shorshei Neshama Yisrael, Sheneshama Chelak Me'Elohim Ma'al. that the Torah is like carved out of the neshama of the Jewish people. And then it continues, so talking about mimi no eish dot lamo. So in the Teklin Chadatin, he comments, dot lamo, dalid taf, lamed mem vav, hen otiot Talmud, kidichtiv rabbeinu hagaon nishmato eden. So he says, Vilna Gaon said, dot lamo, those are the words for Talmud. So lamo, literally given to us, hainu shenitna lanu, that the Torah was given to us. The gam ken shemichu beret lenishmatenu, and so too that it's like connected to our souls. Zehu lamo, that the Torah is connected to our souls. The gam kai al mimino shemichu beret lo yitbarach shemo. It's also that the full pasuk is mimino eish dot lamo, that there's a metaphorical hand of Hashem holding out the Torah, which is connected to our souls, and the hand is connected to Hashem. Okay, so this kind of drasha is very difficult to say, but it's written down in the name of the Vilna Gaon, so you get to say it. On the topic of fire, earlier in the Masechet, we established several Mishnayot as being according to Rabbi Meir. Damar Rabbi Meir, Kashem Shiklo Torah, Kach Kablan O Torah. He holds that the Kablan, the extra you have to add on to the shekel, plus because the shekalim weren't pure in his time, you have to give a full Doraita shekel amount. Kasav Rabbi Meir, Benotar Sheklo Shalem, Shehu Chev Kalbon. Damar Rabbi Meir, Kemin Matbea Shel Eish, Hotzi Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitachet Kisei Kavodo, Verehu Moshe V'amar Lo, Zeh Yitnu, Kazeh Yitnu. That was in the first parak. That is to say that Moshe Rabbeinu was shown a shekel of fire and was told, this is what you have to give. So, to kind of develop that out into a little bit of lomdus, I think the opinion of Rabbi Meir that the shekel itself is doraita. This is one of the foundational opinions in Shekalim and how the Masechet is supposed to work. And it can come down into how the emphasis in Shekalim is on giving the shekel, the amount of the shekel, giving it, as opposed to the other half of the mitzvah of Shekalim, which is you're supposed to buy a chelek in the korbanot tzibur. So I think that kind of connects as to why, if you were to designate shekalim nowadays, it would still work. It's not like bikurim, where if you say, this is my bikurim, it doesn't work. Because I think it's kind of like something along the lines of Rabbi Meir's opinion, that the important thing about shekalim isn't necessarily buying a part of the korbanot. Korbanot don't exist nowadays, but you're designating money for a purpose, and then it can be put aside for that purpose, even when the korbanot don't exist. So this is like Rabbi Meir's opinion, that it's the giving that's the important part of the important part of the mitzvah that deserves some emphasis. And so this is kind of like tzedakah. Let's say there's this general principle that our Masechet really runs into, that if you have money, you can designate the funds towards something. And that's the mitzvah of tzedakah. So for example, motar shavuyim l'shavuyim. This is from the end of the second parak. You raise money for shavuyim, and you have some left over. You have to take the money, keep putting it towards that cause. Motar shavui, loto shavui. Raise money for a specific person who is, captured. That money has to go to that person. It was, the donor designated what this money is supposed to go to. Motar aniyim la'aniyim, motar ani la'oto ani, motar ametim la'metim, motar amet la'yorshav. Rabbi Meir said, we're not sure what to do if there's extra left over for a dead person. Do you give it to the Yorshim? Do you do something else with it? We don't know. We don't know what the donor's original intent would have been. Rabbi Natan Omer, Motar Amet bonin lo nefesh al kavaro. Rabbi Natan says, you have extra left over from money that you raised to bury someone, you could build them a nice tombstone or a big, maybe even like a big ohel around where they were. So that principle that, half of shekalim is the tzedakah of giving shekalim, and half is the fact that you're koneh a chelik in the korbanot tzibur, that's why it's possible to still be makdish shekalim b'zman hazeh, which is the halacha, because we still have that aspect of tzedakah. And then, of course, we don't have the mitzvah of shekalim nowadays. We don't practice it, but we still have the mitzvah of tzedakah in other areas of our life. And as we go into Masechet Yoma, this is a good message because tefillah, tshuva, u'tzedakah, mavirin roha gezerah. Okay. So Hadran alach Masechet Shekalim v'Hadran alam. Datan alach Masechet Shekalim v'datan alan. Lo nishe minach Masechet Shekalim v'lo tit nishe minan. Lo ba'almadein v'lo ba'alma date. Hadran Masechet Shekalim v'hadrach alan. Datan alach Masechet Shekalim v'datach alan. Lo nishe minach Masechet Shekalim v'lo tit nishe minan. Lo ba'almadein v'lo ba'alma date. Hadran alach Masechet. Okay. Do I have to do that 3 times? I don't know. Hadran alach Masechet Shekalim v'hadran alach. Datan alach Masechet Shekalim v'datach alan. Lo nishe minach Masechet Shekalim v'lo nishe minan. Lo ba'almadein v'lo ba'alma date. Yiratzu milefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohevotinu shetei Toratcha u'manotenu b'olam hazeh u'tei imanu l'olam haba. Chani bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Acha bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Daru bar Papa. Herevna Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu v'fiot Amacha Beit Yisrael v'nyan kulanu anachnu v'tzetzenu v'tzetzei Amacha Beit Yisrael kulanu yodei shemecha v'lomdei Toratecha mo'evaytecha kameinu mitzvotecha ki l'olam hili bi tamim b'chukecha l'ma'an lo evosh l'olam lo eshkach b'kudecha ki v'amechi tani baruch ata Adonai l'omdeinu chukecha amen 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 Selah va'ed Modi manach Lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohevotenu shesamta chalkeinu miyoshvei beit hamidrash v'lo samta chalkeinu miyoshvei kranot shenu mashkimim vehem mashkimim anu mashkimim l'divrei Torah vehem mashkimim l'divrim betelim anu amelim vehem amelim anu amelim makablim sachar vehem amelim ve'inan makablim sachar anu ratzim vehem ratzim anu ratzim l'chai olam haba vehem ratzim l'ver shachat shenamar v'ata Elohim toridem l'ver shachat anshe damim mirma lechzu yemehem avani evtach bach Yiratzu milefanecha Adonai Elohai kashem shazarutani l'sem Masechet Shekalim ken tazrini l'hatchil Masechtot Sfarim acherim from Kedoshim Achrim. Ulasai Mam Lil Model Med Lishmor Velasot Kayamet Kol Divrei Talmud Torah Biava Uz Kul Kolataneim Ham Moraim Betam B'dei Chachamim Yamud Lil Zari Shlo Tamush HaTorah Mipi Zari Iz Vizara Zari Ad Olam V'tikayem Bi B'hit HaLechecha Tanche Otach B'shochecha Tishmor Alecha V'hakit Sotahi Tisichecha Ki v'yibriyamecha v'yosifu l'chashnot chayim or achimim b'mina b'smola osher v'chavod Adonai ozlamu yitanai v'rechdemo v'shalom. In the recording.
Yesher Koach.
But we definitely made it through